Before you watch this video, to the uninformed viewers, the previous review covered Doom 3. I'd recommend you view that first before giving this video a watch. Before downloadable content was the hip trend on stage, expansion packs were gifted to some of the lucky shooter titles back in the day. An expansion campaign would often come in a separate package, the only requirements being that you owned a physical copy of the original game it was based off of. Doom 3 saw its first expansion pack in the form of Resurrection of Evil, a semi-sequel, semi-continuation of Doom 3's plotline. This additional adventure was developed by Nerve Software, a branching company said to have been founded by an ex-id Software employee. Resurrection of Evil, like most expansion packs, sought to deliver what people wanted, which was more Doom 3, if you were a fan of that game to begin with. But this would also give the developers an opportunity to take the base difficulty of how Doom 3 played, and possibly enhance it, making the experience even more combat-oriented compared to the original game. So, how does it fare? Well, this mission pack did receive a decent score to my understanding, but I certainly haven't heard of many people fondly reminiscing about it. That being said, it's my goal in this video to see what kind of fancy treats this expansion pack could bring to the table. Let's take a peek at Resurrection of Evil. We begin our story on the outskirts of Mars, with a brief recap of the events that took place before this game. 2 years after the disastrous teleporter accident on the original Mars base, a new UAC team led by a Dr. Elizabeth McNeil has been conducting further research near the abandoned base, after detecting a faint broadcast signal emitting from the planet. The investigation leads a team of combat engineers to a hidden chamber beneath the Martian surface, among them being this game's silent protagonist, Marine 2.0, a tougher, older Marine with more combat experience than our previous hero. Surely a man of this stature would have enough military training and professional judgment to avoid making mistakes such as touching the ominous beating heart in the sealed away Evidently, digging up the artifact proves to be a mistake, as the forces of hell break loose across the base once more. Armed with nothing but this beating heart and a pistol, the Marine sets out to escape the catacombs under Dr. McNeil's orders. However, before he has a chance to evacuate, he encounters a demonic hunter through one of the ancient hell portals, in hot pursuit of the artifact in the Marine's possession. Upon its defeat, the artifact consumes the beast and returns to the Marine the ability to temporarily slow down time. This being an object of unspeakable power, the importance of transferring it to the science labs becomes an urgent priority. As it turns out, upon further research in the Erebus and Phobos labs, the artifact is a weapon that was created in the pits of hell as a potential aid to conquer an ancient Martian civilization, ruins of which were uncovered at the old dig site in Doom 3's plotline. This Heart of Hell proves to be a valuable asset to the Marine as he spars with 2 other Hell Hunters, gaining the abilities of Berserker damage and invulnerability. But the fun stops here, as the ancient carvings studied by Dr. McNeil reveal that the artifact can only be destroyed by returning it to the source of its creation. That, of course, means another fun-filled field trip to heck. The law enforcement of hell shows up to criticize the Marine for his efforts, and oh hey, it's Dr. Betruger! He's a tongue now. I mean, it's not as far a stretch as turning Sergeant Kelly into a tank, so I'll let it slide. Engaging Dr. Betruger in a match of endurance, it would seem that he is simply too powerful to overcome, demanding the defeated soldier that he surrender the artifact. The Marine complies in his own little fashion by force-feeding him the unstable heart. Betruger eats his own words, the screen flashes white, and the developers run out of a budget to film an ending cutscene. The end! Yeah, okay, I understand that this is barely an expansion pack, and I shouldn't expect a masterpiece level of storytelling from Nerve Software, but it is somewhat underwhelming to not have a properly established conclusion to this game. And even then, I still have problems with this story. It's not necessarily a problem with how the plot progresses, it's a basic exercise of going from point A to point B. But there is one underlying factor which does upset me. Why the hell would the UAC approve continuing research on Mars? No, you can't tell me that these people had any reason to return to this planet, especially after what they called a mechanical failure that decimated the entire human population on the base, with the exception of one Marine. In fact, where was the original Marine in all of this? Shouldn't he have a say about the UAC proceeding further with work on Mars? Couldn't he at least grunt in such a way that would convey a message along the lines of, "Don't go back to Mars, it's crawling with bloodthirsty demons beneath the surface. I have this audio log of a scientist whose final wish was to ensure that a demonic invasion would never happen again." But no, the UAC still abides by its terms of completely ignoring moral and legal obligations, and that's Bimbo is perfectly fine with leading the expedition near the original Mars base. Hello? You were the one who leaked the information about Dr. Machuga's mad experiments and Dash for Power in the first place! Why would you want to come back here? But I can't just pin the blame on her, I suppose. After all, it is our lovable combat engineer who initiates the second invasion of Hell by curiously touching the artifact, which subsequently kills his entire squad. Oops. Well, despite all the problems I have with this plot existing, we at least have some solid gameplay to appreciate. Being an expansion pack, Resurrection of Evil plays identically to Doom 3. There are more claustrophobic corridors and dim-lit laboratories to explore, more demons to fight, more people to talk to, more arcade machines to mess around with. It's all here. Rather than treating you to a Half-Life inspired introduction, Resurrection of Evil drops you right into the action without hesitation. And boy, does it really scream action at certain points. Distribution of ammunition seems to have been increased dramatically as well, which is a top selling point for me if it means I get to use the chain gun more often. Yes indeed, all of your favorite weapons have been restored to glory. You've got the chain gun, the rocket launcher, the BFG 9000, everything excluding the chainsaw and the soul cube from the original game. A new mechanic introduced involves the transportation of power cells, part of the UAC's new innovative technology. You simply unload the power cell from the generator and transport it to wherever the game tells you to go. It's mostly an exercise in backtracking simply to reach a new area of the complex, and you never see them again past the first half of the game. There has been a considerable increase in difficulty for this campaign, and I'm not exactly referring to skill level here. Resurrection of Evil is quite determined to get you killed in many different ways. More explosive barrels are littered around the vicinity. Seriously, who leaves these things lying around? More outward journeys across the hostile Martian environment, and there's also a section where you don a helmet with limited oxygen supply to traverse a hazardous materials tunnel. We aren't limited to level hazards, however. We're also up against a diverse army of demons, including 4 new additional baddies. First, we have the Forgotten Ones, who are essentially reskins of the Lost Souls. They're small, awkward to hit, and just as irritating to dodge. Next up are Vulgars, who become the staple replacement of imps in this game. Oh sure, there are still a couple of imps to go around, but Vulgars act as straight upgrades to their bipedal counterparts. Vulgars are everything you never wanted an imp to be, healthier and twice as aggressive. They can be especially challenging to hit as they slither across the ground, and if you stand in a clear jumping distance of one of these guys, you might as well pour butter on your head and call yourself toast. Just as a Vulgar is considered an upgrade of the imp, the Bruiser is the alternative to the slow and steady Mancubus. Statistically, Bruisers contain less health and deal roughly the same amount of damage as a Mancubus, but don't be deceived, these guys will kill you. I repeat, they will kill you. Bruisers lumber towards their target at a reasonable pace, armed with rapid-fire weapons. My major complaint with the inclusion of these enemies is how they manage to appear in environments with very little room to strafe past their barrages of fireballs. And finally, we're subjected to Hell's finest legion, encountered only a single time throughout the game, the Biosuit Zombies. They're about as harmful as a rabid tortoise on a skateboard. Kill one and it drops an Enviro tank for your oxygen supply. Thankfully, backup firepower has arrived in the form of 3 new weapons to play with. We begin with the Ionized Plasma Levitator, which is really tedious to blurt out, so instead we'll just call it the Grabber. The Grabber was introduced namely as an answer to the physics-based toy that Gordon Freeman got to play with in his escapades during Half-Life 2. The Grabber functions similarly, just not quite as efficiently. The Grabber can be used to pull movable objects and enemy projectiles into your control for a short couple of seconds. Any items in your grasp can be either dropped by pressing the reload key, or hurled away with movement-based precision by releasing the firing button. Your directional movement actually determines the course of which the object is sent flying back, meaning if you stand still or start walking forward, tossing the object will guarantee it will fly straight forward. You can use it simultaneously as a tool for offense, and for easy collection of pickups if they stand far out of reach. It's a thinking man's weapon, but I personally don't find many uses for it during the second half of the game. Next up is the double-barreled shotgun, otherwise known as the super shotgun. A general rule of thumb I keep for any first-person shooter is that if it has a double-barreled shotgun, then it's probably worthy of my attention. And my god is this a formidable weapon. The standard shotgun is already a powerful beast, but the super shotgun outperforms its younger brother in almost every respect. In fact, for the most part, it kinda makes the single shotgun obsolete for the remainder of the campaign. The damage this gun deals is enough to kill weaker enemies such as imps and Z-Sex at a comfortable distance, but simultaneously, it can take down Pinky Demons and Revenants with a single well-placed blast. It's definitely my top pick for this expansion pack. Unfortunately, that leads us to my least favorite addition to the arsenal, and that's the Heart of Hell, also known as the Artifact. The Artifact makes this game a complete joke. Here's how it works. In order to use its power, the wielder must charge it with human souls, but you can only carry 3 charges at a time. It doesn't matter, however, because if you take a moment to guess what game we're playing, you'll find that the body count is about as common as ammunition packs. Every time you defeat a hunter boss, you gain its power to charge the heart. The first power gives you the ability to slow down time for everything around you. The second power gives you berserker damage, and the third power, it makes you completely invincible. All at the same time, by the way, you're essentially enabling God mode without having to open the console. The problem I have with this is that Resurrection of Evil makes the attempt to actionize itself to be more reminiscent of the classic Doom titles, but there are simply some design choices that really do not complement Doom 3's combat system. The Artifact feels like it was tacked on to give the player an easier time fighting enemies that are very poorly positioned. For the most part, you can avoid using the Artifact, but that doesn't make certain segments or battles any less tedious to complete. And then there are moments where the Artifact becomes less of a suggestion and more of a requirement. I could see how they would justify using it for level hazards and obstacle courses, but for enemy encounters, ugh. If we're entering gimmick territory, why couldn't we just use the Berserker power-up from the original game? You only encountered the damn thing twice, why not take advantage of the situation and allow it to make another appearance? In fact, that power-up already granted you invulnerability. If the Artifact were designed to give you the option of cycling between powers, only allowing the use of one at a time, perhaps I could forgive the developers for its inclusion, but as it stands, I find that this design choice was really poorly executed. Alright, let's cover the presentation of this expansion pack. Unfortunately, I do not have many glowing things to talk about. We'll start with the good stuff. Sound-wise, it still maintains the fidelity of the original game. Graphics-wise, it's passable, though I did end up lowering my settings a bit to record this game at a consistent 60 frames. I couldn't tell you why I was having frame rate issues on the higher settings, honestly. And we come to the bad stuff. The biggest visual detriment is the shadow work. Allow me to just say that if you weren't a fan of Doom 3's dark shadowy sections, you're not going to like Resurrection of Evil. See, in Doom 3, the shadows worked to the game's advantage. They were placed strategically, with care taken to determine each individual light source, and the extent of which it would travel before darkening. The reason I never brought up Doom 3's shadow work in the original review is because I'm one of those people who thought it was beautifully executed. Okay, so I forgot to even mention it, but nevertheless, I thought it was very well done. In Resurrection of Evil, however, shadows feel very haphazardly placed in certain rooms. It's just not quite as clean as the work of id Software. Even in level segments that are purposefully pitch black, they lack polish. Any devices which emit light just don't feel very subtle. And as long as we're segueing into personal problems I have with this game, there's thankfully not too much else to harp on. I've already expressed my dislike for the Artifact and the Bruiser enemies, but what really gets on my nerves are the boss fights. Now, I'm not going to say anything different that other reviewers have already stated. The first 3 boss fights are just lame. They all use a single pattern of attack without spicing anything up, and for the second and third hunters, the Artifact makes incredibly short work of them. But the biggest disappointment to me is the final boss, the Maledict. And it really aggravates me how I can't stand this fight because it actually does what I expect a boss to do. It changes attacks the more damage you dish out. During the first phase, the boss has 4 attacks, spawning a small group of forgotten souls, flying across the arena spraying a trail of fire, and 2 variations of a flame puff attack. And then we come to the second phase, where he'll decide to summon a herd of meteors. The meteors are just about completely impossible to avoid getting hit by. It's the one part of this boss that makes it practically unachievable to kill on higher difficulties without abusing the Artifact. This expansion pack came so close to delivering a good final boss fight after the lackluster Cyber Demon battle in the original game. Anyway, that about leads us to my closing thoughts on this expansion pack. I don't intend to leave on a fully negative note. There are still a couple of elements in this game which I can appreciate. The double-barreled shotgun is a fantastic inclusion for this campaign, and I love how the developers left plenty of ammo scattered around for pre-existing weapons, like the chain gun and the BFG. Another neat feature is that certain enemy types that are incredibly rare in the original Doom 3 make a reappearance in this game, which felt pretty refreshing to see. Unfortunately, that's kind of where I draw the line. The difficulty of this campaign might only please die-hard Doom 3 players. And even then, while I consider myself one of those people, I still find that the game struggles to deliver what it sets out to do, which is increase the action of the original game. The key issue is that many battles are still fought in enclosed spaces with very little room to breathe and stay in a groove, which results in a false type of difficulty: bullshit enemy placement. Granted, I'm happy that there are less monsters hiding behind closet doors in this game, but that doesn't really make up for the issues which I've already addressed. At best, I label this expansion pack as decent. If you're big into Doom 3's modding scene, I recommend you buy it simply for the extra content that certain mods utilize. You're getting about a 3 to 4 hour campaign for the price of $5 to $6, which isn't really steep when you consider the price of downloadable content nowadays. And if anyone is going to ask, no, I don't intend on covering the other extra campaign, dubbed Lost Mission. It's only available for the BFG edition of Doom 3, which I bought and almost immediately refunded due to personal problems I had with the remaster. But I'll keep this topic out of the video, I've rambled for long enough as is. So, thank you all very much for watching, and I hope you have a great day or evening.